overcoming poverty, burning off stress, paying attention with ADHD, building a career, beating a painful genetic disorder. After 13 years of helping others do the same, fitness became a foundation for my life's greatest gift and challenge, becoming a father. My name's Alex Van Houten, and I believe that what I eat, how I move, and what habits I live by are the rock upon which I build my physical, psychological, and spiritual well-being. And whatever I do will rub off on my kids and my community. Welcome to Defining Dad Bod, where we work to untangle the messy knots of the health and fitness industry as if your children's lives depended on it. Because they do. This is where we decide to make our bodies stand for something bigger than ourselves. This is where we find practical wisdom to live by, one powerful conversation at a time. May the words spoken here inspire you to keep moving forward no matter where you are. Who knows who you could be if you could become 1% better every single day.
We can do the show thanks to the support of listeners just like you. For more information how you can become part of the inner circle, go to definingdadbod.com/inner circle. That's definingdadbod.com/inner circle.
What's up, guys? This is Alex Van Houten with Defining Dad Bod. I hope you're doing super well. I'm actually ridiculously jazzed up, not just about this episode, but also just in life, primarily because I just got tagged in a social media post that I can't help but share with you. Because for me, this is what the heck it's all about. I've been in the health and fitness industry for 14 years now. I know, I can finally say 14. How cool is that? And stuff like this still gets me. So this is a shout out to one of my clients, Miss Courtney Berg, who just tagged me on Facebook after working with me for almost 6 months. The post says, Alex Van Houten has helped me lose officially, as of my weigh-in today, over 30 pounds in 137 days. I'm super excited. If you need that extra hand-holding through the process, he's definitely your guy. I have certainly put forth a lot of work in the process, but I didn't have to think about any of it. The entire program was catered for my body, my goals, and my unique needs and issues. I cannot possibly recommend any other system or coach higher than him. You can get a free week and see what you think. Shoot him a message. Defining Dad Bod. He works with both male and female clients, so don't let the name fool you. Hashtag not sponsored. Hashtag just believe in him that much. Hashtag real results. And I'm not going to lie, it's got me a little misty-eyed to know all of the obstacles Miss Courtney has overcome in order to achieve her goals. She's a full-time mom and a full-time employee, and she works out primarily in her own home gym. And while she's got a good setup, let's just say we've had to be innovative about some of the things we've done with her exercises. She's overcome back pain, knee pain, wrist issues, and even a pretty brutal anxiety issue with regard to running through the neighborhood after a rough encounter with some not-so-friendly dogs. I'm sugarcoating it. It was pretty bad. And when we got connected almost 6 months ago, it was actually through her husband who connected to my podcast that I was able to talk to her about her goals and how we should get there. Courtney, if you're listening, I appreciate you just as much as you appreciate me. Thank you for the inspiration you give me to continue doing what I do best, and that is to help bring people to the next level. If you need some help on your journey, and you'd like to give this virtual coaching thing a try, go to definingdadbod.com/trial. You'll fill out a form that takes about 10 minutes, and we'll let you try it for a week, because the coaching process is a delicate one. You have to understand and trust me and my methodologies in working with you in your personal obstacles, but you also have to be willing to hold yourself accountable, to tell me the truth, and to communicate effectively so that you get the most out of your program. Again, if you're willing to give it a shot, I'd love to have you. definingdadbod.com/trial. Now getting into today's show. After receiving a few questions on different posts, I realized that I've been using the term general adaptation syndrome as if you understood what the heck I was talking about. And so, embarrassingly, on episode 115, today you're going to learn the difference between exercising and training. And in order to make it easier to understand and to illustrate the point further, I've even created a sample program for you to take a look at to understand the difference between training and exercising. The link's in the description below, and I talk about it in the show today. A brief note before we get started. Here at Defining Dad Bod, your feedback means a lot to us. It helps to guide the direction of the content that I'm putting out for free. And so I'm asking for your feedback. Whether you're a supporter through Patreon, that's patreon.com/definingdadbod, or through the Inner Circle from definingdadbod.com/innercircle, or just somebody who listens to the show regularly, I want to hear from you. There are 4 series that are really weighing on my mind that I'd be interested in knowing what you want to hear about. The first is to finish the Exercise in the Brain series. I've covered ADHD, I've covered depression, and I've covered exercise as the good stress. But we've still got things like the aging population, dementia and Alzheimer's, anxiety, and even exercise during pregnancy to really put a lid on the Exercise in the Brain series. Also planned out and on paper, but not yet on the show, is a series on supplements. I'd like to walk you through, more specifically, what supplements are on the market, what ones might be worth taking and why, and important considerations around them. Things like creatine, magnesium biglycinate, and even understanding what a high-quality fish oil looks like and what brands are out there that might do it some justice. That would be the supplement series. Third, again on paper, but not in content yet, is a series called Become Your Own Trainer. I've covered a lot of program design variables here on the show to answer how to grow muscle the best, what sets, reps, tempo, and time under tension might help you achieve your goals more effectively. I've even talked about different ways to think about your cardiovascular exercise, to alter your intensities and your volumes, to get things working better for you rather than against you. And if that's interesting to you, I'd like to know that you want to become your own trainer, and I'll start working to put that content out. And last but not least, I've had several requests from listeners who are either brand new fathers or expecting, and they want to better understand the exercise and nutrition considerations around pregnancy, breastfeeding, and early childhood. As you can see, I've got my work cut out for me, as all of these are extremely important topics. So tell me what you think. On our Facebook page, facebook.com/definingdadbod, there's a poll there for you to weigh in. Should we finish off the Exercise in the Brain series? Should we start the supplement series? Do you want to hear more about becoming your own trainer? Or should we dive into pregnancy and breastfeeding from an exercise and nutrition perspective? All good stuff, all valuable, and all worth your input. And if you haven't yet raised your hand in support of Defining Dad Bod, I encourage you to do so. I love what we do here, but we couldn't do it without our awesome supporters. And we do our best to reward our supporters well through Patreon and the Inner Circle. Go to patreon.com/definingdadbod to learn more about supporting the show with a monthly pledge. Or if you'd like an individualized link, as in a quarterly contribution, or a one-time contribution, you can find that form at definingdadbod.com/innercircle. Thank you guys for your feedback and support. I'll keep the good stuff coming. Now it's time to stop exercising and start training. What is up, guys? This is Alex Van Houten with Defining Dad Bod. I hope you're doing super well. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the difference between exercising and training. If you don't take anything else away from what I'm about to say to you today, I want you to stop exercising. Yes, you heard me right. Put down the weights, step away from your cardiovascular machine, and press pause on your P90X videos. Stop exercising. Because if you're not training through your exercise habits, then it's very likely that what you're doing is ineffective for your long-term health and fitness goals. Okay, I'm kind of kidding. Don't stop exercising. In fact, studies show that even if you have no idea what you're doing and you have no periodization whatsoever in your exercise program, meaning you don't pay attention to sets, reps, time under tension, tempo, you don't change interval progressions, or you don't even know what I mean by changing phases, it turns out that you're better off than people who aren't exercising in terms of body composition, energy level, episodes of depression or anxiety, and even sleep quality. So no, don't stop exercising. But I hope I have your attention, because today I want to talk to you about the difference between training and exercising. It's come to my attention that I've alluded to a concept many times in the show called General Adaptation Syndrome, or specific adaptation to imposed demand. And I've just said those things and then continued on as if you knew what I was talking about. Sorry about that. I tend to do that in everyday conversation. You can ask my wife or some of my favorite clients. But when a listener reached out recently to ask me whether or not they should still be doing base building cardio while they were doing their weight training program to lose fat, it occurred to me that I hadn't fleshed out this concept on the show. So here it is. Put very simply, training is when you use exercise adaptations to progressively get better, whereas simply exercising is just continuing to move. And while exercising has its benefits, training, that is, using exercise in a periodized way to get better and better, is not only much more effective in reaching your short-term goals, but it makes exercise habits something that's both progressive and sustainable for the long haul. I have a client that I train that has worked with me for over 7 years. I've mentioned her a few times on the show. She's 63 years old and makes many 30-year-olds in the gym look ridiculous. In fact, her and I just spoke this week about her new ability to be able to do 2 full pull-ups to full extension, chin completely over the bar, in the gym without assistance. If you couple that with a few of her other amazing statistics, you'd agree she's quite the specimen. People come up to her in the gym pretty often and ask, "What are you doing? How do I do that too? And can you just show me your workout program so I can do what I need to do to be just like you?" She gets a pretty big kick out of it because, having worked with me for a while, she understands that training is a progressive process and it's very individualized for each person, so that even if her gym admirers had the dedication she did to do her training program, it might not work out very well for them. We've had 7 years to dial in on the adaptations that change her for the better, to help her walk an amazing line of athletic performance. And she would tell you that that sort of result does not come by exercising. It comes by training. And although she's my longest term client, and definitely one of my top 5 of all time, she's not my only client who trains and has trained for a long time. Even my clients who have only worked with me for 4 months or so now understand the difference between what they were doing in exercise before and what they're doing now when they're training. So I hope by listening to this honest conversation today that you'll take a good long look at your program and ask yourself, are you training or are you exercising? And if you'd like to be training, but you're only exercising and you'd like some help with that, I have a resource to talk to you about at the end of this that you might appreciate. So first, in order to understand the difference between training and exercising, you need to understand an important concept called General Adaptation Syndrome. I know, it sounds like a disease, but it's not. General Adaptation Syndrome describes the ability of our body to adapt to a short-term stressor because it's a biological being. What that means is there's a predictable way that your body responds to stress. If the stress is sufficient and able to be recovered from, then you'll adapt to become stronger. But if the stress is sufficient and you're unable to recover, then the net effect of General Adaptation Syndrome is to break you down. Let's take a good workout program, for example. Imagine you have 16 weeks in order to achieve great results. Let's say this being October, you want to start 2020 off on a great foot. And so we look at the next 16 weeks to say, by the end of January, you'd like to be in better shape then than you are now. Heck yeah, let's do it. A good workout program would start you in what's called a foundations or conditioning phase. For 2 to 4 weeks, we would work to make sure that your ligaments and tendons are nice and dense, that you have good mitochondrial density, that you have good core stability, that you don't have any injurious movement patterns, and that you're using the right large muscle groups to do global movements. In layman's terms, if your body was a house and we're building it from the ground up, the foundations phase is digging nice and deep and laying a concrete slab. In this phase of training, we would use lighter weights, slower repetitions, and emphasize cardiovascular conditioning in our low-intensity training zones. Oftentimes, when I work with a client in this phase, they'll also report improved energy, better sleep, and if everything's going well, increasing confidence in their ability to stick with this program. Because of some of the nutrition changes associated with this phase, I also often call this phase the insulin sensitivity phase. But I've covered that elsewhere in the show. Google Defining Dad Bod Hormone Pyramid if you're interested in checking that out. So 4 weeks in, according to General Adaptation Syndrome, we have entered and exited the alarm phase of change and begun the resistance phase of change. That means we've applied a stressor to the body, and the body has started to respond positively, as long as we take an adequate number of rest days and we're getting a decent quality and quantity of sleep. Not perfect, but decent. then our body will respond with the positive adaptations that we set out to create. Better tendons and ligaments, muscles that move like they're supposed to, and improved VO2 and metabolic flexibility through cardiovascular conditioning. So now it's time to apply a more intense stressor. This is what we call the endurance phase. In the endurance phase of training, the repetitions get faster, and there's more of them, and you get a little less rest during your weight training workout. In the cardiovascular world, we introduced moderate intensity intervals, or some runners might know them as tempo training days. The goal of this phase is to continue to improve cardiovascular adaptations like mitochondrial density and the ability to burn fat as a fuel source at higher levels of intensity, while also conditioning our type 1 muscle fibers so that they're good and endurable. And that way we can recover better between sets in our higher intensity phases, and so we have a solid foundation to build strength and power on later. If everything goes well here, then with general adaptation syndrome, we continue to move up the resistance phase of general adaptation syndrome as the body builds resistance to the stressors we're applying to it, and we begin to move into what we call supercompensation. In general adaptation syndrome, supercompensation is the body's ability to maintain a high level of biological adaptation. I said the words mitochondrial density earlier, and this is a particularly important adaptation, so maybe I'll spend a little extra time on it here. In every cell of your body, you have a tiny little organelle called a mitochondria. One of my guests, Dr. Bruce Cooper, and I spent a lot of time talking specifically about mitochondria. So if you want to dig into that, check out episode 105, What Your Trainer Never Told You About Improving Your Energy, with Dr. Bruce Cooper. For our part today, just understand that in the endurance phase of training, the things that you're doing to your body signal for your body to increase the number of mitochondria that each cell has within it. An increase in number of mitochondria is signaled by methylating DNA in the cell and signaling for the proteins to be coded to build more mitochondria. It would be like owning a business and getting a big influx of revenue from a great account, but also needing to hire some workers in order to get the job done better. That's what mitochondrial density is like. If you're training appropriately, then the stress of training will increase the number of mitochondria in every single cell in your body. This, in turn, allows you to produce more energy from the food that you consume and to better utilize the oxygen from the air you're breathing. There are many reasons this is important, but one of them is an increase in metabolic rate. Some people say, when I exercise, I know I'm raising my metabolism. And while there's a number of ways to interpret that statement, I will say that if you're training well and your training produces an increase in mitochondrial density, then yes, your overall metabolic rate will increase. But more specifically, the amount of energy that you have available to you will increase, which incidentally leads to less fat storage and therefore improved body composition. And so the endurance phase is very important. And within 4 to 6 weeks of training in this phase, then it's time to move to the next phase. My personal favorite, the hypertrophy phase. In the hypertrophy phase, the weight training aspect of your workout program gets heavier. Heavier weights, less repetitions, with more rest in between sets. From a cardiovascular perspective, the amount of intervals and the intensity of those intervals increases, while continuing to do base building cardio to keep the foundation of your house that you're building intact. You'll be adding intensity to the program, both for weight training and for cardiovascular training. The adaptations of this phase of the program are increased muscle size through cross-sectional area of muscle tissue increase and increased growth hormone output, and in guys especially, increased testosterone. In this phase of training, you're cashing in on the increased tendon and ligament density and the base cardiovascular adaptations that you created in the previous 2 phases. Your metabolism's nice and high. You're burning fat well as a fuel source and making great use of the carbohydrates that you eat. And you're challenging your muscle tissue with both volume and intensity, telling your body that your current level of lean body mass is not enough to face the challenges that you currently face. This phase of training feels pretty fantastic. That is, unless you just hate lifting heavy weights, in which case it's kind of a drag and a little bit of mental effort on your part to stick with the program. We're nearing the peak of our supercompensation in general adaptation syndrome, which means that we're only able to maintain this phase for so long. Some people, only 4 weeks. Some people as long as 12 weeks. But however long you're in this phase, the goal is to increase either volume or intensity, but not both at the same time. And because of the long rest periods in this particular phase, the workouts themselves can get pretty long. They don't have to, but they can. Now, where we go from this phase is pretty individualized for each person. By this point, if you started training in October, you're probably around January here. For some clients, we enter a brief athleticism phase to ramp up the intensity of their workouts, cash in on our great metabolic rate, and to get some extra tone, leaning out those awesome muscles we built during hypertrophy. For other clients, the stress on their body of training through hypertrophy has been sufficient such that they need to take some time to deload or to have a short off season. And so we spend a couple weeks continuing to exercise, but doing so at a lighter intensity, kind of similar to the foundation or endurance phases of training. Still, other clients who are training for performance goals, for instance, will enter what we call a peak cycle of training, where we're walking the powerful line of maintaining great athletic performance without creating injury or entering the overtraining phase, which simply means we're 2 steps away from training too hard, which means continual monitoring to ensure that we don't push the adaptation system too hard and end up injured or ill. And then, having peaked and recovered, we reevaluate our goals and begin a new training cycle. That doesn't mean that we're doing the same workouts that we did 4 months ago. What it means is that you're a whole new beast at this point. And while we still have to follow the same ideas, foundations, endurance, hypertrophy, strength, and athleticism, the way you might go about accomplishing those adaptations for your new body at this point will definitely look different from last time. For instance, your first time through, maybe you could only hang from a bar for 60 seconds. In order to get your traps, your lats, and your grip strength to work together as a unit. But now doing a pull-up's not too hard for you. And so we're working to hang from the bar with one hand. Or we're doing hanging leg raises so that we can hit your abs while we also work on those hanging muscles. Or my personal favorite, eccentric pull-ups with a little extra weight on you. Hashtag when pull-ups aren't hard enough. Why am I walking you through this training cycle? Well, first, it might surprise you to know that many trainers that I've educated have been 5 years into their training career before they understood what periodization or training actually meant and how it actually looked over a 16-week period. And second, because I want to juxtapose that with the idea of simply exercising for 16 weeks. So if I took the average person and I asked them to start an exercise program for the next 16 weeks so that they can start 2020 off on a great foot, they're likely to do a number of things. They might Google great workout programs and try to follow that. Or maybe they'll just show up at the gym and spend some time on a treadmill for a while before venturing out to some weights or some machines. Or maybe they'll go to YouTube and follow P90X or something like SealFit. Whatever they end up doing, 2 things are usually missing. 1. Distinct phases from week to week that allow the person to progressively build on the adaptations that they created in earlier phases. And 2, an intelligent system to understand whether or not they're recovering well and to guide the duration, the volume, and the intensity of their workouts. So what happens quite often to people is that they begin a new exercise program. And if they're lucky, they achieve some results, but then they plateau. And the reason for that is that the goal of your body is to adapt to the stressors you place on it. Once it's adapted to them, there's no reason to continue changing. So as long as you continue to do what you've always done, you will plateau. But the other thing that happens is that they get injured. Back when I worked for a large corporate fitness facility, we had over 15,000 members in our location. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 to 400 people would join newly every month. And there was a time when I was in charge of talking to each one of those people, understanding their goals well, understanding their plans for those goals, and helping to inform them better. One thing I learned from doing over 2,000 of those consultations is that when many people think of weight training exercise, they think, I'm going to go to the gym, and I'm going to do 3 sets of 10 of every exercise I know. And if they've had some fitness experience, maybe they split things up into leg day and back day and chest day. And heck, when I was a young trainer charging $20 an hour, that's exactly what my programs look like that I wrote for other people. But I hope you understand that doing that continually is not training, it's exercise. And if you have your head wrapped around general adaptation syndrome, you understand that training, as opposed to exercise, is progressive and it adapts you over time to become stronger, more endurable, more metabolically flexible, more efficient, better recovered, more energetic, and less injurious than you would be if you didn't train. My client that I told you about earlier would tell people that if they want to be like her at 63, then it's going to be a process and they need to be in it for the long haul. Almost like they need to start where she was at 56 and work their way up. Given our time spent training together, she's been through the training phases at least 14 times, if not more. And what's powerful about training is that every single year she's gotten better and better. And she and I are both pretty interested in what the limit of that might be. We'll let you know if we hit it. If you're not an exercise science person, I've thrown a lot at you in this show. So I'd like to end this with just a few practical notes on your own workout program and evolving that. And then I want to connect you with a resource that could give you an idea of what this looks like. First piece of practical advice, work toward consistency, then increased volume, then increased intensity. Actually, that's exercise science in a nutshell. Are you currently working out 0 times per week? Then work to get 3 times per week consistently in your schedule. Even if it's a 20-minute jog or a 20-minute calisthenics workout. It doesn't really matter what it is. If you haven't been exercising, doing something is better than nothing. So before you worry about how heavy the weights need to be or what heart rate zones you need to be in or how long your rest periods should be, just get consistent with however many days per week that you're able to commit to. I had a great conversation about this with the Soviet samurai recently. That's just his handle. I'm not really sure the story behind that. But that's episode 111 on old school results. Get consistent with your exercise. Then we can worry about volume. Volume just means amount of time spent exercising, if we're talking about cardiovascular exercise, or for weight training, we're talking about number of sets completed in a week. As a rule of thumb, I like to do at least 3 weightlifting sessions weekly. And in the smaller phases of training, I'm trying to get 20 to 25 sets done. And in the higher phases of training, I'm trying to get 25 to 35 sets done. And once you have a handle on your volume, and your volume has reached basically your upper limit of amount of time or amount of sets that you're able to accomplish, then you can start worrying about intensity. Intensity is how heavy the weights are, or how short your rest periods are, or how fast you're running, or what distance you're able to cycle in a certain period of time. Intensity is getting faster, more powerful, stronger work done in the time that you're exercising. It incorporates aspects of fitness like power, agility, and anaerobic capacity. These things are powerful adapters and can get you great results. As long as you don't go over the top, you allow yourself to recover, and you don't stay at high intensities for too long a period of time. So, first piece of practical advice, go for consistency, then for volume, then for intensity. And I used the example of 16 weeks over a period of time because that's the average length of the macro cycles that I use to coach my clients. That is to say, you probably need a short period of time off of exercise, at least intensely, every 16 weeks. Another practical note about training here, cardiovascular exercise is non-negotiable. There's a lot of talk in the training world about how much better weightlifting is for fat loss or muscle growth, or hormonal adaptations, or overall improved outcomes. So if you only have 3 hours in a week, you should definitely spend them weightlifting and not doing any form of cardio. Cardio is for losers. It doesn't help people. Blah, blah, blah. Unless you're at a genetic anomaly, and those exist, cardiovascular exercise is non-negotiable for a number of reasons. 1. Weight training adaptations are significantly improved when the person doing weight training is in great cardiovascular shape. Remember we talked about the mitochondria in every cell? If you've already got a lot of mitochondria, you're going to do much better when you lift weights. You're going to feel much better, and you're going to process your food better than if you don't have very many mitochondria, but you start lifting weights anyway. I recently started working with a new client who's been doing CrossFit for 2 years, 3 to 5 days per week. Nutritionally speaking, she was also keto adapted and eating less than 1,300 calories per day every single day. When we started working together, one of the things that I did is I reduced her intensity by limiting the amount of classes she could go to and replacing those with 30 to 45 minute jogging routines. She's not a big fan of running, so this took some persuading. But after 4 weeks, she feels more energetic, she's actually eating a bit more, and she's dropped 5 pounds. Her husband's pretty amazed because to him, it seems like she's working out at a lower intensity and getting better results. And I've had to explain a number of times why base level cardiovascular conditioning is non-negotiable. If you want to have great lean muscle mass, you want to maintain a great body composition by keeping your fat mass low, and you want to do it for the long haul, then you need to be in good cardiovascular shape. I could keep droning on about this, but the only other thing I'll say about it is that all the muscle tissue in the world will not help you if your heart, your lungs, your blood volume, and your brain all go to hell in a handbasket. Sure, studies show that if you do cardiovascular exercise or weight training exercise and put the two head to head, weight training definitely increases metabolic adaptation over 12 weeks than does cardiovascular exercise. However, those are just short-term research studies, and any study that looks at longevity, development of things like Alzheimer's disease, or even long-term body composition results as a function of genetic heritage. Those who do regular cardiovascular exercise, in addition to weight training, are the ones who are healthier, happier, more independent at elderly ages, and, you might have guessed it, have lower body fat percentage and higher muscle tissue. Now, personally, the way that I balance this in my life is I make sure that I have 2 days a week devoted to cardiovascular exercise. It's not my favorite, but one base training day a week and one tempo or moderate intensity day per week has helped me maintain a number of aspects in my own health and fitness. And whether I can get 3 or 5 days in of weight training this week, given whatever obstacles I have to face, I can rest assured that my weight training program and my cardiovascular program will remain balanced, and my body will continue to adapt well. It's possible you're different, but if that's a helpful template for you, take it and run with it. So let's review. There is a difference between training and exercising. The primary difference is found in the idea of general adaptation syndrome. Basically, if you're training, you are progressively growing your body's ability to adapt to increasingly difficult stressors, as opposed to just keeping up good movement patterns. While some exercise is better than nothing, if you want to take things to the next level, you need periodized training in your life. And so I promised you a resource to help you see what this looks like. You can find that at definingdadbod.com/training sample. That's definingdadbod.com/training sample. I've put a sample 16-week periodized training cycle in PDF format for you to check out. In fact, you're very welcome to try to do that for the next 16 weeks if that sounds interesting to you. However, note that it's not personalized to you, but it's a good sample of the structure of prioritizing consistency, increasing volume, and then increasing intensity before a deload phase. I hope you find it helpful and interesting, and the link's in the description below. This has been Alex Van Houten with Defining Dad Bod. Stop exercising, start training. And until next time, guys, kick butt, take names.
The free practical advice and conversations here remain unbought and unbiased thanks to the support of listeners just like you. For more information on how you can become a part of the inner circle of Defining Dad Bod, go to definingdadbod.com/inner circle.